Hi everyone, welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by DataTalks.Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events and today is one of such events. If you want to find out more about the events we have, go to this link that you will find in the description. Sadly, right now there is just one event, which is this one, but actually we have more in the pipeline. It's just we need to find time to finally put them there and announce. So this one, the event we have today, was announced only this week, but we knew about it long time ago. So, but yeah, anyways, keep an eye on this. Do not subscribe to our YouTube channel, because this way you will not miss any cool streams like the one today. You will get a notification, and we have a great Slack community. Join it if you want to hang out with other data enthusiasts. During today's interview, you can ask any question you want. There is a pinned link in the live chat. Click on this link, ask your question, and I will be covering these questions during the interview. And by the way, there is one more link in the description, which is about our MLOps course. Data strategy and MLOps maybe are not super related, but if by any chance you are into MLOps and you do not know about our free course, there is a link that you can check there. I will shut up right now, stop sharing my screen, and find the document that we prepared for you. Okay, I think I have it. We take a sip of water.
Yeah, perfect.
Is it Boyan or Boyan?
That's a good question. Like everybody gets it wrong, so I can say Boyan. I mean, in Germany it's a bit easier to say Boyan. Oh yeah, correct.
But how do you say it?
Boyan.
Boyan.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try my best. So this week we'll talk about data strategy, and we have a special guest today, Boyan. Boyan is a data strategist with a decade of experience in various academic and commercial environments, such as bioinformatics, clinical trials, HR tech, legal tech, and management consulting. He is an author of 2 books. One of them is Elements of Data Strategy, and the other one is Python and R for the Modern Data Scientist. Currently, he is leading the data strategy function at Exeta AG. I hope I pronounce it correctly, which is a large technology company that focuses on the German-speaking region of the world. And he is also running a digital transformation consultancy. So, welcome, Boyan.
Yeah, hello, I'm glad to be here. Glad to talk about data strategy, the favorite topic.
As usual, the questions for today's interview are prepared by Johanna Bayer. Thanks, Johanna, for your help. So now let's start. Before we go into our main topic of data strategy design, let's start with your background. Can you tell us about your career journey so far?
Yeah, I think that's a favorite question. I mean, my career, I think it took me quite many different places. I think, especially for your audience, it's interesting to hear, because I was a data scientist before there was such a thing, I would say. I think it was right on the edge of that. So I studied actually biochemistry, cell biology. After this completely by accident, I started to do a master's thesis, which was a bit more computational. That's where I started to code. And around that time, I wondered, what should I do with my life? And being able to code, knowing a bit of statistics, then I heard in the US, they have this title data scientist. And I thought, well, let me try in Germany. And in Germany, because I studied in Germany, normally people really care about your background. So I was very lucky that the startups don't. So the startups looked at me and said, yeah, actually, if you can code, if you know things about data, you can be a data scientist. So I got the title, I got the job, and I spent the first half of my career being a data scientist for all those kind of different startups, mostly. And that was fun. I learned a lot. I learned also a lot how not to do things, which I think is also useful. And kind of to the end of my second half of my career, it was a bit like another accident happened to me, because I was seeing myself as a more introverted person, and going into consulting wasn't an obvious thing for me, to be honest. But I tried and I loved it. So there I got the very strange title data strategist, which even at the time people didn't understand. And now I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. So hopefully I can help a bit with that today. So I spent some years there. I did a data strategy for a company, and they invited me to be the CTO after that. So that was a funny thing, because it shows you if you do a data strategy, then easily you can transition to a different role. but also we have a saying in Bulgarian, which means you have to eat the soup you cook. So it was funny because I had to make the data strategy, then I had to go and implement this. And it's of course very challenging. So we can talk about this today as well. And yeah, I was the CTO of this company that was more, it's a really focused on data business. So that was really obvious that as a data strategist that would fit. At some point, though, we weren't successful, unfortunately, like how many startups are. And I really wanted to go back to consulting. And this is around the time when I finished my second book about data strategy. And I thought, okay, now, yeah, I really have unfinished business there. So this is why I'm back in consulting at Exeta, where, as you said, like I lead the data strategy function here and working with all kinds of clients on the topic. It's by far my favorite topic, data strategy. Yeah.
So how did it happen that you were called a data strategist? So you said, or maybe my impression was that it happened kind of by accident?
Yeah, I went into consulting by accident, and at that company they had the data strategist as a title. And I looked at it at first, I was thinking, well, okay, that's interesting. You know, I'm a data scientist, so yeah, is this something for me or not, right? So at that point, I started to realize actually I do know I'm comfortable and I do enjoy the things around data science. And I thought, let me try this out, because there was a lot of unfamiliar words, to be honest. And this is the reason why I wrote the second book, because I got the title and I started to ask, yeah, what do I do now as a data strategist? Because you get the requirement from your company, which is like, yeah, make data projects successful. And yeah, go have fun, right? I mean, which is everything without the coding part, yeah? And that was challenging, right? I asked a lot, the role wasn't super defined. It was kind of this purple people, you often call them, I think. There was a mention of that. Yeah, I heard this. There was a article, I think, from DVC, this data versioning tool. One of the people there, they mentioned that there's these purple people. I don't know why that's the name, but the people who are kind of in between technology and data, and between technology and business, right?
Like product managers, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Data product managers. You know, when I wrote my book, I asked that question: how do you call such people? Is it data strategist the right title? And I haven't found a better one. I think it's cool to say data product manager. I think that kind of feels right, because actually it's not all we do is a data strategy. That's a big confusion which comes. People think all we do is a data strategy. Well, actually, 80% of the work is implementing a strategy. But that doesn't come from the title. So that's how it happened. That's how I became a data strategist, but the skills weren't defined. It was really the requirement was, yeah, get value from data without coding, basically. Yeah, and I had to find my way. This is actually why I wrote the book, try to define it a bit. I did this Venn diagram of skills. You know, the data science Venn diagram, right? That was the original thing. In data science, we had the same thing, if you remember, many years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. So data strategy is getting value of data without coding, right? So
yeah,
maybe you can give a, I don't know, more definition, more precise. Yeah. So
Perfect,
what is
yeah.
data strategy?
The data strategy, this is technically a plan to get value from data. This plan has to be actionable and it has to be flexible enough to be changed when in operation. And this plan, it has to contain a lot of information, right? You often see, I think on LinkedIn, sometimes you see when people say data strategy and you have a list of goals, right? A list of goals is not a strategy. This is always upsets me when I see that. A strategy, it's normally a very big document, and that's actually a dangerous thing. But in this document, what you do, I can talk about the phases because in the book I split the process of doing data strategy in phases. But one important thing to say here is a strategy cannot be static. That's a big mistake, right? You have some kind of plans for your data teams, for your data products, projects, and then things don't work out, right? This is a very typical scenario, right? Somebody does a data strategy and nothing happens. So I'm very focused on making a data strategy which is flexible and iterative, right? You do make this static document at the beginning. Normally it's a deck actually, but then you have to really be able to change this. And there's a lot of artifacts actually connected to that deck. It's not just I can give you one example. A data dictionary, for example, would be a part of the due diligence of a data strategy. So you can imagine this deck and you have a big Confluence page which contains a dictionary of the data associated to a use case. So just as an example how specific you can get. Yeah.
So it's still a bit abstract to me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we have a deck which describes the strategy.
Yeah.
I know that strategy is a big document. It cannot be static, and then there are some other artifacts like data dictionary. But maybe you have like a more concrete example, like what exactly is in this deck?
Yeah, maybe I can go into the process then of data strategy. So you can't tell a company what to do if you don't know where they are. So it's a classic mistake. You hire somebody to give you a plan, but you can't make a plan if you don't know what's there already. This is a very classic example, especially in big companies, right? You have to spend a lot of time at the beginning figuring things out. I mean, you know, like when you do a data science, so let's say a machine learning project, you can't just say, yeah, we do need to make a churn model and then wait for success. That doesn't work this way. You have to see what data you have first. That's the most important thing. So that's the due diligence part. And that takes a while. The due diligence part is you're not strategizing. It's really mostly about figuring out where the company is. And first you have to find out what the goals of the company are. I even had this discussion today with my team, actually, how do you do it with clients? Because every business has some kind of point, right? It wouldn't be a business. Let's say you're a company which sells socks, right? I mean, let's take a basic example. And then you have a data team and you can imagine, yeah, the goal is to sell more socks faster. Yeah. And taking this.
Yeah. So we have a company that sells socks.
Yeah.
The goal of the company is to sell more socks.
Yeah, faster, let's say. More socks faster.
Okay.
Let's make it a bit more. Yeah.
Clear. And then we have a data team in this company whose
correct.
goal, because they work also at the socks company, is the same goal as the entire company.
It should be, but this is where the strategy comes in, right? Because normally what happens is in these companies, it's like the C-level people think, let's hire a bunch of data scientists, right? And tell them exactly this, yeah, help us sell more socks faster at a better price. And that's literally how it is actually. And then the data scientists, you know, they're like, yeah, but the data and this and that, and we do need data engineers, we do need some kind of cloud platform, we do need a budget for this. What type of skills do we need? You know, this becomes a mess very quickly. So this is really what's happened in Germany. After this, companies realized, we do need data engineers as well, right? Because somebody needs to make the data available, somebody needs to set up the infrastructure. And now what happens is companies realize, we need data strategists as well, because somebody needs to see how do you go from selling more socks faster to, you know, actually if you do a churn model for a socks customer, that somehow contributes to that goal, right? And this translation, how does one more technical impact contributes to the business one, that's very hard. That's really hard to find the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that part. Yeah,
I think I more or less understand, but I'm still a bit confused. So let's say we have a goal to sell more socks faster, right? And then so what exactly goes to the strategy? Because in order to implement this model, we need to have like the data infrastructure, actual data engineers. We need to have the platform. We need to know to hire. Does this go into the deck with the strategy?
Yeah, correct. I think I have to jump a bit forward and then go back again, because now we go into the design phase. Let's say what you did in due diligence, you find out what use cases there are. Do they have a cloud environment? How does the data look like? What type of people are there? You know, this is like seeing what's there. Let's say you know where the company is, what is there. Now you have to design the strategy. And the first thing you do is use case ideation, right? You basically have a look at what use cases are possible. I mentioned the churn model. That's one use case, but maybe you can make some kind of recommendation engine for the online shop, right, to sell socks. That's another use case. You can find probably 10, 15, you know, for any business, right? So that's the easy part, because coming up with ideas, you do need to have some experience. Again, this is actually data strategist work, because you do need to have seen many use cases. But then what becomes very hard Actually, ChatGPT can help you here a lot. You could technically ask, what are the use cases of selling socks? You know, in that example, maybe it's stupid, but you can say, what are the use cases of selling flowers or chairs? How do we use data science to sell chairs? You know, and you can get a lot of nice ideas. But the hard part comes here. It's why a data strategist needs to understand technical things, is the feasibility part, right? Easy to come up with ideas, but what's feasible is very hard. And here you take the results from the first phase, due diligence, look at them because you know now what the data is there, what the skills of the people are. You do know all of this. So we can say for the recommendation engine, we have the right people, we have the right data, we have the right infrastructure. Let's do it. There you have the prioritization part as well, right? Because then you need to see, you know, okay, let's say if you make a recommendation engine for the online shop for socks, how important is this? And you take the feasibility and the importance, the business impact, and then you prioritize. That's a bit easier normally, but again, here the hard part is actually the technical understanding. And this is what most companies mess up still, is like you make some ideas and then you make a strategy, and then when the people start to implement, it's not feasible, right? And this is very hard to know what's feasible or not.
And for that, you really need to know what is there, right? So what kind of data?
Yeah, and this process, ideate, feasibility, and prioritization. Really, this triad is like the standard thing. To be honest, after this, you do need to do several other things which come into the data strategy. You have to set up the target architecture and technology, because let's say now you know what the use cases are. And here there's something I want to talk a bit about. It has the fancy name influence cascade. I'll give you a concrete example. Let's say we have a churn model, and we use tabular data, right, for that, like very standard numerical stuff. And for whatever reason, and we build the API, we build the whole product, and it's done. But for whatever reason, then the success, it's not very successful, right? Because we didn't take the right data, the right people weren't involved, we didn't know how to measure. There's many reasons why it's not successful. Then you have to go back and let's take text data. It happens, this scope creep in data projects happens all the time. But if you take text data, suddenly you have other problems, and that's why I say cascading. The product people, they often think a small change here, what's the big deal, right? It's just another data set. Oh no, now you do need more storage. Maybe the data is PDF, right? You do need, and that's the hard, so you do need NLP people suddenly, right? And then the whole thing breaks down, start from the beginning. This is why you do the use case stuff first, and then you do target architecture, like, because if you change the use case, you change everything. So this is why that's the first step. Yeah, but this is a design process. There's a few other steps there, like data governance and the operating model, which are a bit more standard. The operating model, basically, how do people operate together? Do you set up like a hybrid team? Do you set up like a centralized center of excellence team? All of that, right?
Mm-hmm. So the goal of this deck of having this data strategy, or that is our output from a data strategist, is to join a company, first understand what is there, then come up with some cases, come up with this architecture, target architecture, and all these things like designing this thing, then thinking about data governance, operating mode.
The people, right? Yeah.
Operating mode. And then we have this deck, right? And then what happens next? Like, do you
that's the $1 million question. That is the $1 million question, because even if you do a great data strategy, you have the right use cases, the right people, everything's correct, it is static, right? And the world is very complex. Having such a deck already, you have fixed a lot of problems which would happen anyways, because people are supposedly going to work on the right things, the right people at the right time, right? You have a roadmap as well. I forgot to mention this. And you're ready to start working. But this is the whole third part of the book, actually, of my process, is delivery. And that's, I'll be honest with you, this is the hardest part. And I personally even haven't figured this out completely, because here's where you face the reality. There's 3 elements here I have added in my model. One is impact assessment, another one is portfolio management, and the third one is DataOps. Let's start with the first ones because they're less controversial. So impact assessment, you do need to set up some kind of a baseline. Let's take the socks again, right? So let's say you have a data strategy, you're in the socks selling business, and you remember the initial goal, right? Selling more socks faster. I mean, that should be measurable at any good business. Unfortunately, often it's not, but let's assume it is. Let's say the business unit measures that, right? It's a big assumption, honestly, for many companies, but let's say they do measure that. So then you really have to have a look in your data team from time to time, and really every several months have a look, well, the churn model, the recommendation engine, these 4 or 5 use cases that are now being worked on and deployed, does it move the needle somewhere? Right? And that's very hard. But you do need to have these check-ins, because then you can adjust, right? Let's say people spend a lot of time on the churn model, and then you see, yeah, it kind of, it does improve the selling of socks because less customers churn, but it's hard to measure. And here you have a lot of statistics, A/B testing, and all of those things you can do. But the price of us maintaining this, it's not worth it. So we have to refocus on something else. So you completely scrap that use case, even that part of the architecture, and move to something else. And this is from the results from the impact assessment, you go to portfolio
Sorry, do you do this actually after implemented? So let's say we implemented this churn model. We ran it, we did the A/B test, we see that there is positive impact, but then we also did some calculation and see that the cost of having this team, having this infrastructure is outrageous, like it's just too large. It does not, like it's not worth the impact it gives us, right? And then we say, okay, like let's...
This is the portfolio management part. You have several use cases. That's the hard thing. You have to have a look at all of them at the same time. It's a qualitative measure often, unfortunately, I think. And there's hidden costs, right? Like the teams supporting them are expensive, and I don't know. You do it during, you can't do it obviously immediately after the start, but most data projects you can do a pilot in a matter of weeks. Then you can start measuring, but you do need a baseline, because what happens here is people forget about this, is if you don't have a baseline, let's say you just started working, you didn't set up some kind of metric at the beginning. You think, okay, come on, let's see, we're going to see results. You get the result at the end, right? At some point you measure the churn rate, but you didn't know what the churn rate was at the beginning. So you go to the business owners and tell them, yeah, we did this, and they'll tell you, so how better is the situation from before? So you have to set up this at the beginning, and that's really something which very easy to forget, that you didn't before the project look at the business metric. That's the number, and then 2 months later you can really say, yeah, we improved this with 2%. I mean, here the hard part comes, which business unit contributed the most to this, right? But at least you have some kind of a start.
Okay, yeah, it's tough.
And DataOps, maybe we can talk about this, because this is a very I say it's controversial, because people, it's like the word data product. People think data product, data mesh word is defined in one way. People think about data assets. So very different things. What I mean by DataOps,
maybe we can start with data product.
Data product.
This is what the data strategy is about, right? How can we...
About data products.
Yeah.
I did change my mind on this one, right? Because I wrote about data products, but to be honest, like it should be data and AI powered products. Yeah, a data product is something else. A data product, it should be just the data. I mean, I made a bit of a circle, and I just joined the data mesh definition of that, right? It's just the data itself without the use case. My view in the book was a data product is data plus use case, but I don't want to compete with the more popular definition, which is just the data, and I think the architectural components around it. It's a bit the data quantum in the data mesh, where it's a bit more bigger. But what I talk about is data and AI powered products. It's like API endpoint for a machine learning model which predicts churn in Salesforce. So that's a data and AI powered product with an AI feature. So this is when I say data product,
So you have some data, and then there is a specific use case on top of this data.
That's exactly correct. That is a data and AI powered product. And technically we should say we talk about data and AI powered product managers, but it's a bit of a mouthful, but data product, we should leave it at the data level without the use case, I think.
Okay. Now let's talk about DataOps, but then there is also an interesting question that I want to ask.
The DataOps is a tricky term. People mean different things. Again, in the book, it's a combination between Agile and Lean. It's just a methodology. And with the like CI/CD angle to it, right? And to be honest, this is like, there's a lot of ideas there. And here's one book recommendation. I'll give it at the end as well, but Agile DataOps, the book. And the idea is, I mentioned Lean and Agile, like, does Agile work in data science? My favorite question. Short answer, it doesn't. But it's like democracy is like not great, but it's the best we've got, I could say. But Agile in data, what I talked in the book, I have these interviews with data leaders, practical data leaders. And they all said, yeah, you can do Agile, but in a soft way, right? You have to be careful about requirements. Because it's very hard to measure certain things, especially at the beginning. So I'll leave the Agile topic a bit, because the Lean part, that's fascinating. And that book, Harvinder Atwal is one of my favorite authors. That book is brilliant. He took the ideas from Lean manufacturing, cars and conveyor belts, to data, right? And the focus there, it's not on doing the right things, but avoiding the wrong things. And this is so amazing in data science engineering, because it's hard to know what the right thing is, but everybody knows the wrong thing. So basically, he focuses on how data people waste their time and energy, like vague definitions of done. Sorry?
The book you're talking about is Agile DataOps, right?
Oh, practical DataOps. I have to check this, but literally how much time data scientists spend waiting. Really concrete, measurable things and just avoiding them. And that's brilliant, I think. That's a brilliant way to manage data projects. You don't focus on what's good, you focus on what's bad.
Okay. By the way, I think we have 2 podcast episodes about DataOps. So you can check them out for more details. The question I see, and it's quite an interesting one, because I also wanted to ask you that, what is the difference between a data strategist and a data science strategist? Because what you described also to me, it's like, it's very data science centric, but data is not just about data science, right? We have cases, we have, I don't know, dashboards.
I mean, there's the idea that there's very nice articles also about how data strategy is going to split into flavors, right? Data strategist is the most general flavor. You could have an AI strategist, somebody who just focuses on that part. A data strategist is just the most general idea, right? Because then you have like data platforms, data engineering, it also is a value, right? It's a bit harder to measure the success of those, right? Because they're kind of an enabler indirectly. You do know there's this hierarchy of needs from hierarchy of data science needs model from Shopify, where you have the advanced use cases on the top, but you can't get to them if you don't have like the data platform and cloud services infrastructure. So data strategist is responsible for that part too, right? To set this up, especially at bigger companies, that's a bigger problem. So I would say that's the difference. It's just the more general one. Also, business intelligence reporting is also there.
It's just a bit more difficult to measure, but I guess we need analytics to be able to measure some things, right? Otherwise,
sometimes it's a gradient. I do think we shouldn't try to measure everything. It's not possible, right? You should at least have an idea, right? I mean, of where things are going. But that's why I do like this. The typical example is like when these lighthouse projects, right? You hear them, big companies want to do something very fancy with AI. Which is normally the last thing they should be doing, actually. This idea is from Martin Sugat from Datenschreiber, who I interviewed in the book. He's a good friend of mine, and he really has brilliant ideas on this. And he told me once about lighthouse projects, it's really the last thing a company should do, because it's normally a very advanced use case. It's some kind of NLP, computer vision, deep learning use case, right? Because that's what gets the media attention. It's amazing and fancy and people like it. But to do this, you do need crazy architecture, crazy skills, crazy anything to move beyond the pilot. What you should do instead is get the most boring use cases like reporting, automation of reporting, get that done, show the number, get the money from the business owners, and then do the more advanced things. And that's his idea, it's not mine, but it's a brilliant one.
Okay. And then coming back to the time when you were hired as a data strategist, as I understood, your background was data science.
Correct, yeah.
What kind of skills you needed back then to actually be able to do this role? What kind of skills like you needed to show you have, and what kind of skills you need to develop when you joined?
Yeah, that's I can refer to the Venn diagram. That's an exercise I did with my colleagues back then, because not just me, but the other data strategists, we had all the same question: what skills do we have? We had some people who are business people, completely business, like people who never called it even, and they are also data strategists, right? That's why you should have different flavors. And I group it into 3 groups, right? So you have the data. Imagine a Venn diagram with 3 circles, right? You have data, you have communication, systems thinking. And data is the whole tech thing, right? It's not just, it's data science, engineering, analytics, cloud, communication. Yeah, everybody will tell you this is the skill, and it is the skill. Can you write? Can you talk? Can you explain? Can you translate? And this is the hardest skill of the ultimate data strategy skill is translation. That's why they call them at McKinsey analytics translators, which I like as a title. It doesn't sound so cool, I think, as a strategist, but you do need to translate from the requirements, sell more socks to churn model and beyond. And you have to operate on very different levels. Systems thinking, that's what I mean. This is the most abstract thing here, which many people would roll their eyes when they hear this, because it sounds like management consulting thing. In the book, I describe it a bit more, but I'll give you an example. A typical day of mine, I have to explain what AI is. And in the same day, I have to look at access permissions on Azure, right? And explain how to do that part in the same day. And that's the hardest part about the job, because you have to move between those 2 levels, right? And I don't think a data strategy, you can't have junior data strategists almost, I think, because it's like something you do need to get from those different domains, but you do have the flavors of people, I think.
Do you think it's important to have these technical skills like explaining roles in Azure?
Or maybe you do need, this is kind of an example I give sometimes with understanding of, let's get a data science example, like support vector machines. Let's take that one. Most people wouldn't understand the math behind it, but if you go on Wikipedia and look at this nice diagram of separation of classes, right? You have the decision boundaries, right? And then you read the Wikipedia article and you see, well, there's this kernel trick, I think it's called, there's this trick to maximize this boundary. Do you understand how support vector machines work? No, you have no idea. You can't code it yourself, but you understand kind of conceptually. So this is the same level you do need to be a data strategist. You do need these concepts of architecture. You do need to understand what is access, what are pipelines, what is orchestration. You really do need to understand this. And it's hard for me to say. I come from a technical background. But I was a biologist before, so yeah, you do need to have conceptual knowledge of everything in data, for sure. I think otherwise it's very hard.
But you don't have to be an expert in, I don't know.
But it is frustrating, and on a personal note, I can tell you what's frustrating about the role, because everybody now is going to think, let me become a data strategist, it's roses and unicorns. You will feel stupid all the time. You'll be talking to people who are 20 years of experience in data architecture, in the same day with people who have 20 years of experience in sales and business. And with both groups, you feel stupid, because you're this weird jack of all trades that kind of knows, and you'll be judged from those 2 groups on their level, right? So you have to prepare yourself mentally for, yeah, but on the plus side, you get to do many different things, which is totally worth it, I would say.
Okay, cool. So again, skills are mostly communication skills, like you need to be able to write, read, communicate, and translate, right? Then you need to have some technical skills, like you don't need to be an expert, but you need to know what is, I don't know, a pipeline, what is a data pipeline, what is an orchestrator, like all these technical terms. So because somebody will need to implement this. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need to
yeah.
have an idea what exactly it is and how much effort it requires, or maybe even you need to know like which tool is going to be used. Like, okay, if we are building a data pipeline, we would use this particular tool, right?
At that point, you can get advice, I think. I think if you, for example, orchestration, right, Airflow versus something else, right, that the second part you don't need to know, I think, because the tools change every day. But you do need, you do need to orchestrate some scripts. You kind of know what that looks like, and then you find a more competent person to help you there.
Okay, so a data strategist is not necessarily a data architect, or
no, no, no.
like somebody will take the strategy or somebody will work with you on the strategy to actually come up with a target architecture, right?
Everywhere you had somebody working with you. Like in the business side, you also somebody's going to work with you. On every of those sides, it's like a role which alone is totally pointless. This role is an enabler only, right? It's completely pointless without other people.
So does it mean that a company who wants to hire a data strategist already needs to have all these places in place, all these people in place before they hire a data strategist, or the data strategist need to come with a team?
It's hard to say. If you're a smaller company just starting out, you do need a data strategist, but they will be called CDO, Chief Data Officer, Head of Data. I think a Head of Data Science has to be a data strategist, you know? Team lead of data science has to be a bit of a data strategist. So this kind of more managerial role of team lead, they have to be a data strategist actually. And you do need to hire them at the start to know what you're gonna do, I think.
Okay. Let's say I work as a senior data scientist, and now I listen to this podcast episode and I think, okay, this is so cool. I want to be a data strategist. So how do I go about that?
You have to learn a lot of business. You really have to learn a lot of business, and you have to let go of a lot of things. You have to start to understand that because you, as I said, you will feel stupid. This will be new to you. And if you're a senior data scientist, you feel like at that point of your career, you already feel your ego is already high because you feel, okay, I have learned so much, I can do anything. Well, now you start from scratch because suddenly you have to understand like how businesses work. And that's it's easy to underestimate, but you do need to start from the beginning. So first, understand how businesses work, talk in your company to, we call them functional leadership. So talk to the head of marketing and go to them and ask them, so how can data help you? And this is the first start. That's the first start, because then you start to understand what they want. And try to align your churn model to the socks selling, right? And talk to the people who sell the socks. And you work in that area. And of course, I would say get the book. The book won't make you a data strategist, but it will give you like exactly the typical things that you need to do, the activities, right? But you have to go and do the work, actually. You have to be comfortable of stopping being a data scientist because you work with very vague things. And normally these are uncomfortable for technical people who want to be specific, I would say. And the worst is you have to work on different levels in the same day. And this is what's also going to happen if you transition to that. But because as I said, like in the morning you talk about business and then you have to write some Python in the afternoon, and that becomes a problem very fast, I would say. So yeah.
Why?
I think the focus you do need to prepare. I mean, in the same day, in several different days, I think it's great because your brain is active in many different levels. But in the same day, personally, for me, it was always challenging to switch the focus that fast, right? Because I think about business, I think in an abstract way, I get interrupted also operationally. But if you have to write code in the same day, I think it's a challenge. But between the days, it's amazing, I think. If you can be a data strategist for 2 days and 3 days a data scientist, maybe that's a good idea.
So coming back to your point of learning more about the business or learning a lot of business, you mentioned that you need to talk to functional leaders, head of marketing, head of product, maybe, like all people who, I don't know, do something. And then you come to them and say, how can data help you? But they have no idea, right? Like, who is this person?
Yeah.
So how can you make it clear what exactly you can help them with?
then just tell them ask them what they do, and then comes understanding. You ask them what they do, they sell the socks, and then they start talking about customers, and then you get this idea, oh, right, maybe we can do a customer segmentation model, right? You have to read about the use cases in your area, which is easy. If you're in a non-standard area, it's hard if you're it's easy in a standard area, but it's hard if you do something very specific. But then if you think about use cases and already prepare before those meetings, you can give them those ideas. They'll ask you, okay, tell me what is the customer segmentation model. And then you have to be able to translate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you mess it up the first time because just by saying customer segmentation model, you already messed up. You should say, yeah, we have this way of separating the target groups, and we can identify them. If you say this, yeah, there you go. But trust me, if you say the moment you say something, you feel smart, they feel not so smart and they don't understand. So that's the biggest challenge. That's communication. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the only way to learn this is by doing, right? So you just
Only
approach different.
by doing. Yeah, but very like this. How people should learn to play guitar. You can just play guitar, but you have to have this, I think, deliberate practice, right? You have to do it deliberately to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, right? Where you have to translate. You can't just, you really have to deliberately learn. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy, I would say, but the results are amazing. I think you get to work on, to be honest, I said it's hard, but on the plus side, you'll be very active in supporting the business. You work on many different projects, many different things. Your brain will always be excited about new things, new technologies. And as I said, this is a gateway to other positions, right? I became a CTO after that, so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the way, how did it happen? Like how exactly the transition happened for you?
Yeah, they really like the data strategy, which is like, that was the biggest compliment to me, right? If you do like the data strategy, and it was just a data strategy, it was not a technology strategy. I had to do that after that, right? And that's very different. Mm-hmm. But they liked my approach. They liked that it was concrete. They liked this translation skills. And this translation skill is the hardest thing in technology, right? I think with the GPT stuff coming up, where do we go to escape from that? And I would say we should go to those middle translating positions because that's very hard, I think. Very few people can do this, I think, translate. And that was very attractive to them because as a CTO, that's what you do all day. You translate.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about the skills you needed when you were CTO and how was it different from being a data strategist?
The skills, the responsibility is much higher. As a data strategist, of course, a bit obvious, of course, but as a data strategist, you're in your data corner and you are it's kind of a consulting role, right? That's another thing for people transitioning to that. You are in-house consultant. You see yourself in that way. Yeah, you're in-house consultant, basically. It becomes different when you're an owner and you own the whole topic, because suddenly it becomes very operational. So that's everything you do becomes very operational. You kind of suffer immediately the results of your mistakes. I had to learn even more about the business, obviously. I think I knew, right? But I had to learn even more. You have to learn accounting. You have to learn budgeting much more. There's a lot of management, of course. It's very, very different role. But being a data strategist helped me prepare because my ego was ready. I was comfortable not knowing. So for me, when I needed to do budgets, hire or fire people, I felt, okay, I can handle this somehow, right? Because as a data strategist, you're already a bit weird. You do know different things already. And then you can transition to do something totally different, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. And then this is something I really wanted to talk to you about, because for your book, you used GPT. Mm-hmm. And that's really nice that you explicitly acknowledge that.
Oh, that's necessary.
Yeah, that's necessary, but also like, I don't know, I'm just thinking like, would I feel comfortable saying that, all the content I write is generated by ChatGPT? I don't know. Okay, but this is necessary, and I wanted to talk to you about like how did it actually happen? Like how did you organize this process? How did you use GPT in the book?
There's different things, and I'll link to somebody else who did something even next level to that. So that was at the beginning of this whole craze, and why I just use it in several areas, only in the sidebar. So for example, at some point I need to explain what Mittelstand is in Germany. So like this, the small, medium-sized companies which carry the economy. So right, when you write a book, I want to write about strategy, systems thinking, and I don't want now to go to Wikipedia or wherever to find a definition and paraphrase this. This is totally a complete waste of time and energy, right? Absolutely pointless, zero creativity in doing that, right? To write what the definition of Mittelstand in a smart way, no. So that's why I have these sidebars only there. And this is, to be honest, the only you really have to say that you did that, right? Because it's very obvious. I think as time goes on, it's not going to be so obvious, but I use it just for the sidebars. I have this robot icon there. And for really boring things, which I think otherwise I just have to paraphrase, right? And this is what it is very good at. But ethically, somebody has to write original content to train those models, right? Because we stopped feeding Stack Overflow. I don't remember the last time I was there. And like that's down the line is going to stop feeding the generative AI models, right? So if nobody produces original ideas, you know, we're going to have a delayed problem later, right? So that's the big ethical number one problem of this whole technology. I think is that one. We stop generating unique content. You can argue for the uniqueness of GPT mapping between ideas, which I do use in my daily work. As I mentioned, like, let's say I do want to find use cases in weird, maybe the government agency which cleans the city. How do you do data science for them, right? Instead of me like spending like 1 hour, I will just ask, yeah, give me please 5 use cases, right? And then I go deeper. For this type of stuff, yeah, but I think really original things is we're a bit far off from there. So that's my biggest ethical concern there. We're doing that, but I can refer for Christoph Molnar. So he's really big in the expandable AI field. He recently published an article about how he used that as an editor for his book.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't do this. I wasn't. That was before. It was a bit early. Now you can do it, and I think in the future I'm open to doing that. I mean, I do use Grammarly, for example. You could argue Grammarly is actually pretty intelligent too, right? I mean, now they have also generative AI features, but Grammarly also, you could argue if you use Grammarly, is this ethical or not, right? So it's a bit blurry, the line there, but I think as an editor, as a definition engine, great, but anything else, I just don't see it yet. But I'm not saying it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so one thing I can think of is, for example, you want to write a chapter. And then for me, I always have this problem of blank page, right? Like blank page problem. Okay, how do I start? And then you can just ask GPT or ChatGPT, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to write a chapter of a book about that. Like, and I need to help me come up with an outline for the chapter.
Yeah.
Right. I just you know, you need to have these sections, and then each section should have these subsections.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
You have like a list of bullet point lists of what you should cover in this, and then it's so immensely helpful. I mean, provided that it is correct, right?
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Instead of like I do write a lot, but a lot of PowerPoint, you can imagine. You have a black PowerPoint where you do need to say 3 bullet points on a topic. It's brilliant there as a start. I can tell you, I haven't seen it yet that you can just copy and paste what is in there. That just doesn't. There's a big difference between 3.5 and 4. I have to say 4 is really getting there. And with Microsoft Copilot coming soon, I think in PowerPoint, you're going to get some really nice new things. But as you say, at the beginning, it's outlining tool is great, I think. But original thought, we're a bit, I don't know. It's going to be a very scary time.
Yeah, but for technical book, how original you need to be.
That's true. Yeah, for a very technical book, I think that's if you want to explain it, because at the end of the day, there's a philosophical argument. Would you buy a book which is written just by that? Philosophically, you should, because a technical book, it's not about convincing you that much. You already bought a book about Rust, right? But you do want to learn Rust, and if that's the best way to learn it, come on, like I would read it, I wouldn't care. Especially if you can notice the difference in like a cadence and because you do notice it's a bit monotonous, right? It's not exciting, the text, right?
You need to know that you can trust the book.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Check the book if nobody edited and nobody proof it, or
yeah, that's for sure.
Then like I would not.
And the references, correct? Yeah, but that's coming, I think, with the reference, and Bing does that as well a bit. So I think that's.
So do you think this is the future of writing books?
Of co-piloting, you're writing 100%. Writing them, I don't think so. We are a long way from that. I think like non-technical, right? Like technical books for sure. I think we're gonna have a lot of this, right? If you just have manual tutorials, that's different. What is a book then, right? Then it becomes a tutorial, not a book, arguably, philosophically, right? So if it's just a tutorial which is printed, then yeah, you'll get this. Which I'm not saying is less valuable, but the real book, you do need a human still there as a main pilot, for sure.
Oh, many people. Because like one person is often not enough to write a book, right? You need
yes,
like
for sure.
Whatever. Okay, and by the way, so speaking about Christoph Molnar, he will do and ask me anything quite soon in DataTalks.Club.
Perfect. Brilliant person, yeah, brilliant person, brilliant. Like because I had an article about explainable AI, and yeah, he's just like he has done so much good work for the field. Brilliant, underrated. I think people don't know enough about his amazing books, like several really very strange and specific books which every data scientist should read, I would say. Yeah.
So coming back to data strategy, I think you mentioned it at some point that it's okay to use ChatGPT or GPT, whatever, for some things. So how can we use ChatGPT for a data strategy design?
It's for you saw this is a topic which you do weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, right? It's not a very concrete thing, and every company is different. You do the look at the use cases, the architecture. It will help you at the beginning. Let's say on the basic level, you work in the SOX company and you ask, what are the use cases for data science in an e-commerce store which sells socks, right? And it will give you like all those 5 or 6 things. That's the most basic way. Then you become more specific because you do know from the due diligence in that company, they use Postgres, they have a lot of text data from reviews, right? And then you do some prompt engineering, I would guess, and say, yeah, based on this data, and they're on Azure, and they have a team of those people, how should they transition to this architecture from this one, right? And then you get some information. It's going to be a good start. It's not going to do the work though, no way. We're very far from there. You just get very basic things like, you do need whatever DynamoDB for this, you need this, but then you can, if you really are going to implement this, then you go to the coding level of ChatGPT, and then it's like a different story. It's a different thing. You go from strategy to tech, then it's your best friend, because then you can really, I guess, move very fast and develop things. But till that point, it's a bit like brainstorming. It's the same like writing a book and outlining things.
Okay, cool. Well, I see that we have a question. Let's say we have to do a data strategy for a consumer B2B2C business. Oh, that's very specific, with a stakeholder. B2B2C is what? It's a business that sells
to another business who sells to customers. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have that. There is a stakeholder, and with what and where do you start?
Yeah. First one, as always, due diligence. Who is the stakeholder? He or she, this person, like, what is their background, right? Because that's really, people forget about. It's like, who is the audience of this? And this person maybe understands a ton about technology, right? And you're going to change everything in the way you talk to this person. Normally it's not, right? Normally this is a business person who is doing this. Approaching this, the first thing you should do is absolutely zero technical terms, zero. And immediately you have to show you understand what the business is doing. And this doesn't happen in a meeting, only one meeting. This person has to feel comfortable that you as a data strategist or whatever know what the business is doing. Otherwise they will destroy you. You're not gonna hit the target. You have to be able to them to explain what the business is about. Sock selling, you have to know it almost as good as they do. Not really, but because they will ask you. And once you show this, then they will listen. That's how humans work. And when they listen, then you have to come up with a very specific plan, again, with zero technical technical terms, which is very short, one use case, very fast, without risk. Like you can say, let's take one data scientist for 3 months, let's do this thing. Let's say, again, a churn model, and let's see what happens. So it's something very small, and you should be able to feel comfortable to talking about budgets. You say the salary of this person times 3 months, 70% capacity, this money I need, can you sign? Give them a chance to just say yes or no. You don't want them to think about AI and whatever. You can use the current hype, of course, which helps. But then give them at the end, like, just one small thing. You don't talk about data strategy, by the way. No. If you want to do a data strategy, you don't talk about data strategy, because data strategy sounds very static, very expensive. You first focus on, let's do a use case. Let's get the value first. And you do a data strategy to do the use case, but you focus on value and concrete results with a budget. And yeah, then you can say I did the data strategy there, right? And then you can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have a question about baselines in data strategy. So the question is, do we need to have two baselines in a strategy? One is for the initial discussion, initial, I don't know, benchmarking, initial understanding of what's the current status, and then the second one is after implementation and actually running the model in production.
I think it will be hard to come up with the exact same thing that you try to measure. I mean, depends what your baseline is. What normally is going to happen is you have some kind of a business metric, right? Reduce customer churn, right? And that's very concrete. You can do a churn model, but how do you measure how much that contributed, right? So I don't think it's going to be one-to-one, and you definitely need two, because you do need to at least qualitatively show, yeah, we are roughly aligned with the benchmark at the beginning, and we can kind of demonstrate at least visually, right? Or this quarter, since the model is deployed, less people churned, right? Again, you get the question, how does your stuff contribute? But at least you are trying to work on the same thing. I think that's but you definitely need something at the beginning. Anything is more than a zero there, right? I would say.
Well, we should be wrapping up. Maybe last question for you is, do you know of any books or other resources that you can recommend to the listeners who want to learn more about this topic?
Yeah, so the best technology book, like on strategy, there's a book called Technology Strategy Patterns, which is like a gem, which this, again, super criminally underrated book. I can really recommend it one. It's focused a bit more on like general stuff, not just that much about data, but it's also very, very concrete. I would say Agile DataOps, I mentioned that one, and Infonomics by Doug Laney. That's Infonomics is great. He talks about data assets and everything. Brilliant book. The book by Alexander Borak and Nadine Prill, that's really great. It's about, I think it's called Digital Transformation with AI. I have to get the link, but that's a brilliant book also. It's very specific. It goes much deeper than I do with concrete questions. What do you ask a business person, for example? And the final book, which is very weird, and that's why I say it, The Secrets of Power and Negotiating. Terrible name. It's like an old 70s American style book about how do you negotiate and convince people, but it has absolutely brilliant advice. How do you do that? And a lot of data strategy work is just that. So read that one as well.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. That's a lot of books. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
thanks,
my pleasure.
Today. And yeah, that was a lot of useful information. We will also include a link to your book. And I think we have like 5 copies of your book, which we are going to give away, probably when we are going to release the audio-only version. So keep an eye on that. And yeah, have a great weekend.